one must have observed that throughout the world, man, the human being, has always been searching for something much more than the transient. He's always been, probably from time immemorial, asking himself if there is something really sacred, something that is not worldly, that is not put together by thought, by the intellect. He has always asked if there is a reality, a timeless state, not invented by the mind, not projected by thought, but actually to find oneself in that state of mind where time doesn't exist, where there is something, if one can use the word divine, sacred, holy, that is not perishable. And organized religions seem to have supplied the answer. They say there is. There is reality, there is a God, there is something which the mind cannot possibly measure. And they begin to organize what they consider to be the real. And man is led astray by organized religions. You may remember that story of the devil and a friend of his were walking down the street, and they saw a man ahead stoop down and pick up something from the road. And as he picked it up and looked at it, he was very startled. There was a great delight in his face. And the friend of the devil asked, what was it that he picked up? And the devil said, it's truth. And the friend said, isn't that a very bad business for you then? The devil said, not at all. I'm going to help him to organize it. And organized religion throughout the world, with their dogmas, with their extraordinary meaningless rituals, their sense of beauty, and there is beauty, and the worship of an image made by the hand or by the mind has become very holy, something very sacred to which one prays. And so man, in his search for something that is beyond all the measure, all time, has been caught, trapped, deceived. Because man hopes always to find something which is not entirely of this world. Because after all, what has society to offer? Any society, the most ancient or the most bureaucratic society like the communist society, or the other capitalist societies and so on, what have they actually to offer? Very little except food, clothes and shelter. Perhaps one may have more opportunity to work and more money to make. But ultimately, when one observes, these societies have very little to offer. And the mind, if it is at all intelligent, alert, aware, it rejects what these societies have to offer psychologically, not physiologically. One needs clothes, food, and shelter. That is absolutely essential. But when that becomes the greatest importance, then life loses its marvelous meaning. And if we could, this evening, it might be worthwhile, if we could spend some time to find out for ourselves if there is really something sacred, something which is not put together by thought, by circumstances, which is not the result of propaganda, whether it be 10,000 years or 2,000 years. And if we could, it would be worthwhile to go into this question. Because unless one finds something that is not measurable by words, by thought, by any experience, life, which is the everyday living, becomes so utterly superficial. And perhaps that is why the present generation rejects this society, though perhaps they may not be looking for something beyond the everyday struggle, ugliness, brutality, and all the rest of it. So if you will, we can inquire into this question. What is a religious mind? What is the state of the mind which can see what truth is? You may say there is no such thing as truth. There is no such thing as God. God is dead. We must make the best of this world and get on with it. Why ask such questions when there is so much confusion, so much misery, starvation, ghettos? Get rid of racial prejudices. Let's be concerned with all that. Let's bring about a humanitarian society. Even if you're dead, and I hope it will be done too, this question will inevitably be asked. You may do it at the end of 10, 15, 50 years, but this question must be asked. Otherwise, life as we live it can have some significance, but without finding out a state, if there is such a state, which puts an end to time. So if we will, we might profitably go into it. First of all, there must be freedom to look, freedom to observe. If there is or if there is not, we cannot possibly assume anything. We cannot hope for anything. If there is any assumption, any hope, any fear, then the mind is distorted. Then the mind cannot possibly see very clearly. So, freedom is absolutely necessary to find out. Even in a scientific laboratory, you need freedom to observe. You may have a hypothesis, but if that hypothesis interferes with the observation, then you put aside that hypothesis. Any conclusion, any knowledge, and it is only in freedom that you can discover something totally new. So, if we are going to venture together, not only verbally but non-verbally, then there must be this freedom from any sense of personal demand. Any sense of fear, hope or despair. One must have clear eyes, unspotted, unconditional, so that out of freedom you can observe. So that is the first thing, obviously. And obviously, our minds are conditioned by beliefs. The Christian beliefs, the Hindu, the Buddhist, and so on. And unless there is complete freedom from belief of any kind, psychologically, inwardly, then that freedom is denied. Therefore, it's not possible to observe. To find out for oneself if there is a reality cannot be corrupted by thought. And one must be free also from all this social morality, because the morality of society is not moral. And a mind that is not highly moral, a mind that is embedded in righteousness, is incapable of being free. And that's why it's important to understand oneself, to know oneself, to see all the structure of oneself, the thoughts, the hopes, the fears, the anxieties, the ambitions, the competitive, aggressive spirit. Unless one understands and deeply establishes what is the righteous behavior, then there is no freedom. Because then the mind gets confused by its own uncertainties, by its own doubts, demands, pressures. So, to inquire into this really very, very important question, what is the religious mind, if there is such thing? There must be this freedom, not only at the conscious level, but also at the deeper level of one's consciousness, so that now the mind, being free from fear, from all the pain of pleasure, and here, if one may observe, bliss is not pleasure. Bliss is something entirely different. Pleasure, as we pointed out, brings with it pain, and therefore fear. And if the mind is looking for pleasure, ultimate pleasure, because the pleasures that we have had in this world are soon worn out. They become rather dull, jaded. One is always looking for new pleasures. And a mind that is seeking everlasting pleasure, sexually, or wanting experiences that will assure great pleasures, such a mind is always in a state of fear, in darkness. You can observe this, a very simple fact. So again, the mind, being free from fear and the search for the deepening and widening of pleasure. And therefore, pain with its anxiety, fear, and all their burden and travail of pleasure. Such a mind is not a free mind. And the mind that believes that there is a God or that there is no God is equally conditioned, prejudiced mind. Therefore it's not free. Now if one can do all this evening, and I hope you can, not momentarily, because the speaker is perhaps emphatic, don't be persuaded by him. For he has no authority at all in this matter of finding out. There is no authority. There is no guru. There is no teacher. You are the teacher and the disciple for yourself. So if one can put aside all this, and that is the greatest difficulty, to be free of all this and yet be well established in righteousness, in virtue. Because virtue is order. And as we live in such great disorder, not only outwardly, the society in which we live is in utter disorder. Social injustice, the racial differences, the economic division, the national, the society in which we live is actually complete disorder. And if you observe in yourself, we are also in disorder. And a disordered mind cannot possibly be free. And so, order, which is virtue, is necessary. Order, not according to some blueprint of certain groups of moralists or priests or those who say we know and you don't know. Order is virtue, and this order is from moment to moment, not a final order. And this order can only come about when we understand what is disorder. Through the negation of what is disorder, order comes into being. The disorder of the morality of the society, in denying the morality of society, there is order. Because society encourages acquisitiveness, competition, envy, strife, brutality, violence. Look at the armies, the navies, all the rest of the business of it. That is disorder.